Takže dobrý deň, milí študenti, vítam vás na ďalšom poradí už stretnutí so slovenskou architektúrou v rámci série, v rámci teda predmetu súčasné trendy v architektúre a v rámci série reflexia architektúry, ktoré finančne podporil z verejných zdrojov Fond na podporu umenia. Teraz už poďme teda do angličtiny. Our guest today is another great Slovenian architect, Jurij Sadar, from the famous office SADAR+VUGA, which was created in 1996. And on their webpage, you can read that they are intentionally, or their work wants to be intentionally imperfect or robust and ambiguous and contradictory, and all about this I think we will hear today in our lecture. I'm very, very pleased that Jurij Sadar has accepted our invitation, and here is already with us in his office. And I would say that it is enough for a short introduction, and that we can immediately start with the lecture. Jurij, you could now start with your talk.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for inviting us to this series of lectures. Yes, maybe also thank you for the introduction, and this is maybe a good starting point for the questions, for the student questions after I finish with this lecture. I also shared the link to some of my students from this year's studio at the Faculty of Architecture in Ljubljana, so they will also have the possibility to hear my presentation. So also thank you for that opportunity. I will now share to the jump to the presentation. So we'll not be able to see each other, but then when I finish with the lecture, I will switch back to this format, and we can hopefully have a nice discussion after the lecture. So let me just do that now. Okay. What I wanted to talk about today and present today is, since we don't know each other that well, is to present you the last 25 years of office production. I named it Happy 25 because all in all it was a great experience with ups and downs, but I think this is exactly what it's good for the students to hear. I will go through the most important projects that the office produced, the projects that somehow marked the milestones in our let's say history or story or whatever you want to call it. But then I will also try to not talk just about the projects and architecture, but also some events that happened at that time. And maybe after the lecture, if you're curious, you can ask me whatever, and you know, we can have like a really nice discussion. Just a slight introduction from where we come. It's actually Ljubljana, a medieval city, very similar to Bratislava. Actually, we know Bratislava quite well. We had today, just 3 hours ago, presentation for a competition in Bratislava for the Kamene Square and the Market Square. It's like a quite important competition in your city, and we are looking forward to hear the results. So we've been in September to Bratislava, and it's somehow similar to Ljubljana. The difference is that in Bratislava you have the big Danube, we have like a small river Ljubljanica. It's much smaller, the city is much smaller, it's just 270,000 inhabitants, but it is a capital. So this is like this sort of Middle European context is where we work. Maybe the difference between Bratislava and Ljubljana is that I would say that Bratislava is more continental, while Ljubljana, it does have a bit of Mediterranean touch. Also the architecture is, let's say, Middle European continental, and then partly Mediterranean with the colors. Maybe also the lifestyle is a little bit more open to the open spaces, to the living outside. So actually this is like where our office is, and where I would say most of our work has been built, although we are trying to work internationally, like this competition project in Bratislava. We've just finished a project in Belgium, you will see. We also worked in China, in the States, and anyway, we try to really expand our field of activity, let's say, outside the borders of little Slovenia. So this is like a diagram we produced 25 years ago, and it's about communication. We say that working in the field of architecture is all about communication. You communicate within the project team, you communicate with the client, you communicate with the public, you communicate with the city, with the press. So the communication goes or runs parallelly to the production, and it enables the project to run smoothly, to be understood by all the involved parties, and with the projects there are in our areas, there are always a lot of people involved. So it's really best to work on the communication in order the people, the client understand what they're getting and what is the purpose and the aim of the project. And then we set up three main starting points. That would be that our production or our work would be open, integral, innovative. What does that mean? That first we are open to all the changes within the society, culture, what's happening around us. We try to bring into our projects to keep them fresh and interesting. Integral means that the project, each of architecture projects is very complex in a way, and we try to expand our project team. So it's not just the structure engineers, service engineers, electrical, mechanical engineers, but the experts from different fields of expertise. Innovative deals with themes like flexible, mobile, new technologies, new materials. So we always try to challenge the let's say not just the technical, not just the technical aspect of the project, but also in terms of spatial organization, in terms of relation to the nature and so on. So those four things, let's say, communication, open, integral, and innovative, is something that we started with, and it's still very much alive or present within our production after 25 years. I would explain today's projects, or the project that I would present today, I would explain them through formulas. So actually, while we were working on projects, we spontaneously somehow developed a personal vocabulary. What does that mean? That means that actually we extended the architectural vocabulary to terms like vertical hall or permeable structure or room in a wall that relate to certain ideas or the concepts of the project. So each one of those ideas is attached to one project, but it can be attached to more of those projects or even one project and have more formulas. That means more ideas. You will see what I mean when throughout the presentation. Actually, I will start with the first project, the project that actually was the foundation to start the office. Me and my partner, VUGA, we worked, we knew each other from student times, and then I started to work. He's a bit younger. He studied in UK at the Architecture Association, and we kept communication. We were still in touch, and when he came back, we started working competitions for 2 years, 3 years, and at some point we won the competition for the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Slovenia in 1996. That was a big thing for 2 young architects. But at that time, that was possible. Actually, that was a transition period. Slovenia became independent in 1991. The economy was doing well, and the institutions of competition were still very much present and very much alive. And so actually, it was possible to enter a competition as a young architect. And usually there would be 20, 30 entries, and we managed to won that competition with quite a radical idea. You know that Chamber of Commerce in those times, after the transition from socialist system to capitalist system, still functioned like a rigid structure. So they were looking for a you can see it on the left in this diagram, for a building that would have a plinth, like a Breitfuß, the Germans would say, where all the facilities like lecture hall or meeting room or gallery or those semi-public spaces would be organized, and then we would have like an office tower. So what we proposed was completely different from the project brief or competition brief. We proposed that also the semi-public functions would be organized vertically, and in that way we would increase the interaction, communication within the building. So people who would work in the office building would see what's going on in the semi-public part, congresses, activities, exhibitions, meetings, and so on. And we would gain additional space in front of the building. That would be the plaza. So as you can see here, you can see how the diagram, the drawing on the in the right corner, vertical section, you can see how the semi-public spaces of restaurant, manager's floor, classrooms, library, gallery, and reception, plus the lecture halls, is organized vertically, and that brings us to a central space that you can see on the left in this diagram through all those plans. The yellow part is what we called it like the vertical hall. This is like the most public interactive part of the building, where the public, semi-public part and the office part meets. It's like a hall, it's like a vertical communication and so on. And we also presented the percentage of that space in relation to the whole building. Here you can see the the view of the building from side, and you can clearly see the office part, repetitive office part to the right, and to the left it's the semi-public part organized in these boxes. We've also presented the idea of the vertical hall as the interactive part of the building within that model. So it's the transparent part is actually the spaces for activities, and the yellow part represents the vertical hall, the space of communication and interaction. For us, it was actually, I mean, it's interesting because usually the office starts to work with small-scale projects like a small house or one family house or residential building, but for us this was an opportunity to start with a really big project that also influenced the way how the office was organized. And of course we were completely overwhelmed with that and really enthusiastic about the first building being built, and we followed the construction day by day. And here you can see how the construction site has its own logic, how they start digging the hole, and then they start doing the foundation, and then part of the building site is actually the building site, and part is the storage where they store the materials that's going to be later included in the new structure. So this would be the day of, let's say, day of inauguration, the day when the building was being built, and you can see two different views. It's like the day view with the building and the plaza, and you can see the night view where the building becomes even more transparent. So the three main parts of the building actually is the plaza in front of the building, where there is a place for events. It can be shared with, let's say, the community, with the area. Then you can see the space of the vertical hall that extends throughout the whole building, and then you can see these different spaces within these shifting boxes where there would be like event spaces or lectures or exhibitions and so on, and a close view to the vertical hall, and then the view from inside. Again, you would see what's going on in the building. While standing in the plaza or entering the building, you would easily see the activity within the building. I mean, this is now already like more than 20 years since the building was finished, nearly 23 years. And at that time, the building became, I would say, yeah, quite popular, well known. It was actually one of the first buildings from, let's say, East Europe or East Europe that would be known, appreciated, exhibited in many events in the West, from Archilab, young architects, promising architects, and so on. And it gave us an opportunity to actually travel around the world and give lectures from Tokyo, Melbourne, New York, Los Angeles, all across Europe, taking part in different exhibitions. Actually, it was like I would say one of the first, if not the first building from Eastern Europe to be appreciated as not being something that would be done in East, but would be similar to something in the West, but it would be appreciated as something as being developed as architecture concept, and being part of the architectural discourse. Of course, that was like a big opportunity. And it gave us a really great start. It was also like part of this communication that I talked about is also like the architecture product does not end with the fact that the building is being built, but one wants to communicate the product further. And the main reason for that is actually architect likes to discuss his own work and likes to get a feedback, what other colleagues, what the public, what the press thinks about the production. That's why we've went into the production of our first book. It was called 3D 2D. It was the Designers Republic's book. It's like a graphic design studio from the UK who did their own presentation of the building as a contemporary building with different interviews, texts, photographies from different architecture critics or photographers. You can still buy this book with, and it's like a really interesting interpretation of an architecture. Not like a it's not like a monography or presentation of certain architecture, but it's more like a sort of reuse, sort of rework or based on the theme of that building. The second building that, so yeah, nowadays within the system of how one gets to the project, it would be really impossible to start the office with two projects like Chamber of Commerce of one country, but then actually we've also been invited to participate in a competition for the central part of the National Gallery closely at the same time. The building was just built 5 years later, and actually the National Gallery had two parts: the old one from end of 19th century with the gallery spaces, and the new part built in late 80s, mostly offices and some of exhibition space, and the middle part was empty, and it was never really finished. It remained unfinished for 15 years, and this is the rubber fountain that they've decided that it's so important that one needs to be how shall I put it, transplanted or moved to indoor space, and the replica should be positioned on that square. And the idea was, as you can see it here, to the right, it's the old building Narodni Dom, the new wing to the left, and in the central part, the position for the rubber fountain. Actually, we started from this idea of a semjaki clothes, where we were saying that it's like a harmonious. So actually, it doesn't really matter the distance, or the distance would not really define the shape of the building, but what would define it would be the transparency between those two parts. So actually, the idea of the cinematic structure, or the formula of the cinematic structure, talks about transparency if you look to the building directly central, but then immediately if you step to the side, and this you can see at the image below, you start seeing the volumes within one volume. Actually, you see the rooms within the one big space. The opportunity to do that was because this was not really the exhibition space. It was more like the space of the entry to the gallery, a space where the rubber fountain would be exhibited, but it would be also an event space, like a city living room for particular events, meetings, and so on. So actually, you can see that on that image. You can see into the building. It's completely transparent. During the day, you can actually see through the building to the city and opposite to the park. But then you can also see what's going on within this building. You have to understand that this is still 20 years ago, transition time. old institution wanted to open up, communicate with the city, communicate with the citizenship, invite them into those institutions, open them up, bring new programs to those institutions, and so on. The funny thing is, like, the Roba fountain didn't, so the building was built before, or 5 years before actually the Roba fountain was moved into the building, because of the big debate whether we should move the monuments from their original site or not. But then in the end, they've come to the conclusion that this is the necessity, and today now the Roba fountain sits in that left part of the building. Actually, here you can see the interior. Interior is like just one big space, but because of those frames and the slabs, the spaces within this one volume, they are very different. One is very low, one is very high. You get like different levels, different perspectives, and when you move through the space, it changes constantly. You can easily say that this is like a really dense space, but then at a certain time here it opens up. We also introduced this additional floor that is like an event floor, like city living room, where there is like a place for exhibition, concerts, opening of the exhibitions. There is also a place for a museum, bar, restaurant, cafe, and a shop on the ground floor. And finally, the Roba fountain found a place. And since being in the building, you can perceive it from different perspectives. Next, I mean, one thing is like a really interesting working in a small country like Slovenia is that it's very difficult to specialize. Actually, you do a museum, but then, you know, it's not like they would build a lot of museums, or you build an office building, but then big building, institutional office buildings, they don't come along every year. So, and then there are also other architectural offices. So I would also show through this competition that we've been involved in large scale, small scale, different programs of projects. And we've also been working on public spaces like that one. That was like a competition for a monument of more for like a millennium of a small city next to the Italian border, like 1,000 years of this little city, and they wanted to make a new square, or square in this little city, to transform the parking place to a place for people, and to put like a monument to this 1,000-year anniversary. It was open what to do, and we proposed a fountain. So it's like a square with a fountain, and the fountain with its let's say ambiguous infinity shape would somehow relate to the topography of the landscape. You can see behind the houses in this little city the two big mountains that somehow correlates to those two shapes of the fountain, and then there is like a famous river that shapes the valley. It's called Socha. So it's the monument. It's somehow abstract, but then in a way it relates to this sort of topography and natural characteristics of the site, but then also opens up it's futuristic enough that it opens up idea about the future. So this is like the presentation for the competition. So we show how the shape of the fountain would change with us walking around around the fountain, and you would always perceive it perceive the form of this fountain differently. This is how it was constructed. It was one of the first project that we've worked on the computer run machine to shape the form of the stone, to cut the stone in this organic form. But still it had like I mean, it was impossible to do it out of one piece, so we had to construct it with the lower level of stones that used as the scaffolding, then the concrete part and the upper layer of the stone. Here you can see it as being built, so the whole square was remodeled. We put those red asphalt, and the fountain was positioned with the flagship and the lightning in the middle of the square. So this is how it lives now, and the kids love it. They hide beneath it, they climb on top of it, and also the community life evolves and around the fountain on the square. Then you know, because the transition times from 1991 to, let's say, 2010, the type of clients and the tasks were changing constantly. So in mid-2000, we were working on quite some residential projects, let's say medium upscale residential projects, because there was a certain demand in the city for a range of apartments that would be more individual, more specific, different from what one would find within the, let's say, majority of standardized socialist apartment blocks. I would say that in Slovenia, that doesn't mean or doesn't really stand for non-quality building, because some of the quarters or some of the areas were developed really nicely with quality landscaping, well thought out urban planning and so on, but still, you know, the people were looking for a little bit more specific, more individualized opportunities where they would be able to live. And that was one of the opportunities to do that. It's a nice area of the city, a residential area with a lot of green areas, quiet, but then again sort of lively in terms of bars, restaurants, and so on. So like a really right spot for that type of, let's say, building, and very heterogeneous in its build or appearance. You would have like remains of this rural typology, then some modernist blocks, and a really very narrow and limited site, where we introduced a house with 12 apartments. And the idea was that each of those 12 apartments is different from one another, and they do not have a terrace, but they have a facade system developed in a way that you actually open 2/3 of surfaces, and you can be inside, but you have a feeling that you live outside. So actually, each of the flats is different. Each of the flats has one room that is like double height or 1.5 height, like duplex or something like that. And each of the flats has like at least orientation to 2 sides, if not to the 3 sides. So that was, you know, a Tetris game that we've developed. And this is like a typical flat. So like a very simple, straightforward, but what gives the character to that flat is like 3 different heights of ceiling. So within one space you have like three different conditions. You can read the flat, one flat to another, also on the facade, and then by the atmosphere of each flat, the atmosphere of the building changes. That was really important for us. And actually we said that we try to combine the typology of New York Loft and Paris Studio. So what does that mean? That actually the building is more like an office building than the residential building, but it's built, and that the floor plan is really open, and that each tenant can develop or realize its own individual, let's say, story within our atmosphere within its own flat. And here you can easily see how one uses different color of light to another. One flat is completely minimal and empty, and the other one is full of things, roses and so on, extends to the facade line and so on. So and then this gives the flavor to the whole building. Then there is another aspect, since the building was put into a really extraordinary environment with this remainance of a rural suburban area right in the center of the city. The facade is not just transparent, but it's also like a mirrored. So actually the surrounding is reflected in the building. Why and what was the intention? And the intention is that actually, for example, like simply said, for example, like when you come home, actually you see the church in the facade of the building. So actually when you look at the building, that would be the same view as the view that you would experience when you enter to your apartment and have a look to the church or direction to the city. So actually one would build the connection to its own house. So like saying, this is my house and my apartment, through the effect that one would produce on the facade. So it has many faces. For example, like here, as you can see, it kind of melts into the street with those villas and apartment buildings. But then on the other side, it extends the scale, and then it mirrors the surrounding in its facade. All along the let's say architectural production, that means working on specific projects like the one that I showed you. We were communicating our production through exhibition, lectures, and also publications. So we've published like 2 books. One is like DD Publishing House from South Korea that published the review of our projects, called Tendencies. Tendencies was something that was present before the formulas, and then for the Venice Biennale we've published that book, and here already we've called it Formula New Ljubljana, and here we introduced the concept of formulas and also the formula of New Ljubljana, where we stated that one would transform the city, not with big urban gestures that was so commonly used in the socialist times, but more with individual projects that would be built in different areas of the city, but would then generate the bigger change within the whole area. That exhibition was and the book was part of the Slovenian presentation of Slovenian architecture, the Venice Biennale, but then it was exhibited in places like Barcelona and also in Prague, in Czech Republic. Now I will show you, so already now we are in 2008, I'm just showing some of the projects that are, I made a selection, and then that project was never realized. It was a competition project for a bridge in Ljubljana. We had this river I showed you, Ljubljanica, and there are many bridges in the city, because the city is the medieval city, and the 19th, 18th, 19th century city is on both sides. So constantly through history, people were building bridges, and now in last maybe 15 years, there were 10 new bridges being built in order to connect the two parts of the city. And there was also a competition for, it's called Butcher's Bridge. It's next to the city market. And here, why I'm showing this is like we were using two formulas. So actually, one formula is not necessary that the project has only one formula. And so the cinematic structure changing, where actually the structure defines the atmosphere of the building, and then to the right it's permeable structure. That means that you would have like also vertical communication, visual and also like physical within the slabs in a vertical direction. So actually this is the site. It's like you can see up on both images the two river banks and the position of the new bridge. In the middle below you can see the three bridges is the famous Plečnik's bridge, where he added like to one bridge he added like two pedestrian bridges to extend the area of the crossing. And the Butcher Bridge, this is the position before now it's actually been built, but this is like the market house being built by Plečnik. This is like a really famous Slovenian architect from that worked in Ljubljana from, let's say, 1920s to 1950s. Started in Vienna, then Prague. In Hracani he built quite some projects, and then moved back to Ljubljana and worked in Ljubljana for more than 30 years. Built a lot of important buildings, and that was one of them. But the bridge was never built. This was his project for the bridge as being part of the marketplace building, but at that time most likely they ran out of money and this was never finished, and the new city government wanted to build that bridge in order to connect the two banks, and for that competition we produced this bridge. Actually there are several layers because the heights of the two banks are different. There is like a height difference. But then there is also like the idea that the Plečnik started to having a bridge like a building or like a sort of a belvedere. So actually, while crossing the river, you would be within the building and you would have different perspectives to the city from different levels of the bridge. We've developed with our structural engineers a really, really interesting structure. When you would have these pillars, sometimes they would be coming from the ceiling down or from the slab up to the ceiling. So they would have all of them that they would work structurally in the same way. So they would be really, for example, like the pillar to the left, it would be very stiff and fixed to the slab below. and it would have a flexible joint where it would touch the ceiling, so there would be like no momentum in that point, but really big stiffness in the grounding on the slab below, while the stalactite actually would function in a different way. So actually they would never really connect one to another, but would be just sort of tenderly positioned one to another. I mean, it was like a challenging project. It didn't get selected didn't get the first prize, but a more, let's say, a more modest and a more simple solution has been built, but that one would provide a really two different atmospheres. That would be the atmosphere of one possibility of marketplace, and the other on top would be like a completely different space, more open to the city, more elegant in a way. And then there would be also a possibility to use the spiral stairs that you can see to the left and get to the river level, where nowadays we have little tourist boats going up and down, and you can embark in that point. So this is how it would look like. It would be an event space. It would be extension of marketplace, but then also a place just to enjoy, sit, have a view to the city, view to the castle, and so on. It's like this spot for the city of Ljubljana. Okay, so now we get to this is in 2008. So and we get to the biggest project that the office has been involved. It was like a competition already in 1997 for the building you see here on the left. It was like a new university sport hall that we won. But then the project never got go ahead. It was stopped for more than 10 years. And then with the new city management, it was restarted and extended. So actually it from University Sport Hall, it became Sports Park Stožice. That means it's like a huge area with a sport park, like a green area, with a retail below, and sport arena and sports stadium. Here you can see three formulas: compressed container, ornamental structure, and landscaper. Landscaper you already seen with the fountain. So it's actually, the landscaper talks about the structure that can be used as a landscape, not like a building, but more like a landscape. Ornamental structure, it stands for a structure that gives the character to the building through its structure. For like example, Gothic cathedral, it's ornamental structure. And compressed container means like a really compressed facility where you get like a maximum floor plan to minimum volume, I would say. So you gain a lot with the list of volume. So this is how we've produced the diagram for the sport park Stožice. It's actually the flat surface of the sport park, and then the stadium like a crater, and arena as like an icon project for the whole complex. This is for Ljubljana, or for the Ljubljana projects of last 30 years, really big scale. I mean, in other cities, also in Bratislava, maybe this is not the case, because the cities are bigger, they develop more faster, or more people move in. But in Ljubljana, actually, this is like a really big site. It's an old construction gravel pit next to the city ring highway, and all of that was meant to become a sport park with those two facilities. So here you can see the program of the park. sport hall, stadium, and huge square meters of shopping area and parking spaces below the sport park. This was an idea, economic idea that the client, that was public-private partnership, developed, that through that amount of retail space, one would be able to finance the sport hall and the sports stadium, and the program would be a unique combination of those two programs, especially with the green roof on top of the retail. So this is like how we present the space, the available space for the project. First, we positioned sport hall and the stadium. Sport hall closer to the residential part because it produces less noise, and the stadium more to the area next to the highway. Then it's the underground parking places. Then it's the retail on top of the parking, and then it's the green park on top of the retail. Green park is supposed to become a public space. So the new type of public park for the area and for the city. So like a new type of park. On that model, we showed the different layers of the projects. You can see the entry points. You can see the shopping, the mall actually, or the shopping street within the retail part, and how it connects to the exits and then the green areas on top. This is like the aerial view, the side view, the render of those two big facilities. The stadium is a crater below the zero of the sport park, and the arena as a building that would be the icon of the park. The building has been built to that extent, and then it has been stopped because of the economic crisis, different political reasons. The arena and the stadium, they're in function and part of the park, but the other part waits for better times. This was quite an experience for the office. If before 2007, we were always like 12, 13 people. The office grew to 25, also because of this project. We started to work differently, and then in 2010, this and other projects immediately stopped because of the financial crisis. So actually, this project was actually our biggest project, but then also became the biggest problem of the office. And then, you know, with the problem, it's always like that. You know, you always, when you get into the problem, you always start asking yourself what I did wrong. You know, it's like what I could have done differently. Was it in my power that something would be done differently? Could I say to the client, look, we should do that differently, and so on. And then, you know, with such a big project that takes quite some time to grasp the you know, the bigness of the problem. But then on the other hand, also it's very difficult to think about the solutions and the other options. And but you know, it's quite interesting because in time you see that maybe, you know, maybe all was okay, and then that this project could be seen not just as a problem but also like an opportunity. So it can be a starting ground to transform, to do something new, and you start seeing in a different perspective. This is really important to hear for you, like students, because I'm sure that all of those things would happen also to you. Maybe not in that capacity, in that volume, but even in the small scale, you know, things can go wrong, they can change and so on, and the question is how to deal with that. First you will see it as a problem, but then you will see it also as an opportunity. So actually the project has been built. There was like an European championship in basketball in the arena. There are national football games being played on the stadium, and it's like a really nice facility. The idea of the stadium was because, you know, it's like 16,000 seat stadium, so it's like a small scale stadium, and we were thinking like what to do, you know, because the atmosphere of the big stadium you get with 50,000, you get like 2 tiers facility with the medium ring, and then half of the spectators go down, half go up, or even 2/3 go up, and then it's really like a dense space. But then here it's not the case. That's why we've done it in a way that the spectators are really close to the game, 6 meters to the side and 10 behind the goal. The sitting rows are really steep to the maximum, and the main feature is actually the roof, the ornamental structure of the roof, where the grid gets distorted in the corners in order to emphasize the focus of the event. So the architecture of the roof is the intention of that kind of architecture effect is in order to really bring the weight of the event to the spectators through the structure, to the exposed structure of the roof. The arena works like it has intention to be like the icon of the sport park Stožice through the shape, but then why do we produce that sort of undulating openings? First is to again, the transparency, to show what's going on within the facility and to open it to the park. Because if you think about those type of buildings, they are usually like boxes. You know, it's like you go inside, and inside there is like another world. While here we wanted to have that sort of communication between the park and what's going on in the facility, and that's why we kind of open those big openings, like big eyes that look from the building to the park. There is like a covered corridor around the whole arena with the entry points, and the arena itself, again, it's like a big building, opposite to the stadium. That it's a small stadium. The arena is quite big. It's like 12,500 spectators. It's not the biggest. It's not among the biggest in Europe, but it's big. It's for the big events. And we've developed a ornamental structure that has the structural logic of a dome, but then again with the fine knitted pattern of the structure, like a lace covers the facility of the space of the event. Again, the idea was to make it as flexible as possible, so all the seats in the lower part are movable, so we can have like hockey games, but then we can also have like basketball games. The spectator is very close to the game. The VIP ring runs all around the perimeter, and the upper 5,000 seats do have like a really nice view and close view to the arena. So it's like a very compressed, and this is where the formula compressed container comes into play. We also wanted to introduce a quality semi-public spaces. All these concourses with the food court, and there is like a sport museum and so on. So actually, we wanted to increase the quality of the level of the visit to the event. This is like the ground floor, the park level. That's why it's green. Then it's the VIP ring that runs all around the facility. Where we show on the right side, we show the photos of the building being built, so like from the starting point to when it was finished, and the upper red ring with the big openings to the park, connections, direction to the city, and so on. So that marked another, let's say, milestone, 15 years of the office. We published a book, a review that was published by Hatje Kantz and edited by Ilka and Andreas Rubi. That was more seriously architectural than previous publications, where we wanted, or maybe the serious is not the right word, but here we were showing the architectural products, while in the previous publications we were presenting more ideas and ways of working on architectural projects. Then there was like quite difficult times for 5 years. You know, especially we really decreased the amount of people in the office, but at the same time we were really working a lot abroad. We won a competition in Belgium that was just finished now, like 2-3 months ago, for 8 years. So that became the most important project of the office. We worked on a project in China, like in central China. We worked on a project for residential villas and many other projects. But one of the really interesting was we were involved in a project in renovation renovation of the main street in the capital, Ljubljana. It's called the Slovenska Street or Slovenska Boulevard, where again we use those two formulas, landscaper and ornamental structure, maybe in a different way. But this is how the street looked like. It was really like just a street, traffic, full of traffic, and it divided two parts of the city, but not just divided two parts of the city, because there were so many lines of traffic plus the parking and so on. No commercial activities was present on the ground floor of those buildings. There were some programs for sure, like hotel, shops, and so on, but many places were just abandoned in a way, because this was not a space for pedestrians, but it was more a space for traffic. There was like a big debate what one can do. Everybody was saying if the street would be transferred from traffic to pedestrians, it would stop, it would mean like a traffic collapse of the city and so on. But still studies have been done. There was like a big workshop of 4 architectural offices we were one of those 4 architecture offices who worked on the project. What I found interesting is it was not a competition, but it was like a workshop. So we've produced, each office produced its own ideas, but then we worked together in close connection to the city, traffic experts and so on. And we developed a completely new type of street where the space for traffic is really limited to public buses, now electric buses. They didn't decide for the tram, but for the buses. It's not bad. I've been now to Bratislava 2-3 times. Trams are okay, but they are more loud and more present in the city than those buses, and just for the delivery and so on. So primarily the shared space is for the bikes, buses and cars, just delivery, and then the pedestrian zone is extended to the maximum. So the pedestrian space, it's tripled as it was before, and that meant that many of the ground floor areas in last 4 years, as that has been built, were transformed into restaurants, shops, and the 2 parts of the city really connected. I would say this is one of the really successful projects that we've been involved. It's also been completely replanted, so the trees are starting to really grow. And we introduced like really big sitting benches, sitting areas, restaurants, extended the space into the space of the street. You know, it needs some time to grow, to people to grasp, but it's a very successful example of a transformation of a city street from something that is just traffic to something that is more or less just pedestrian. Then we've been working in this last 7-8 years much more on small-scale projects, interior projects, because those were the projects that were on the market. If before we were really focused on large-scale projects like doing competitions, going to tenders for that type of work, this was something that was available on the market, I would say, in last 5-6 years. And of course, we wanted to do maximum out of those things as well. This was like one of the projects that started like a student project at the faculty, again like a workshop. 5 studios worked on the idea of a transformation of a former bank hall into a space where the employees of the Bank of Slovenia would be able to gather. It's like a cafeteria, library. Then it's also like an informal meeting space, plus the space for more important meeting or public relation events. Actually, the first round of this, in the end, it turned out to be a competition. Was done within the faculty, like 5 groups of students worked with 5 mentors, and then later it has been, when this proposal has been chosen, it was elaborated within the office, and the idea was to create a completely flexible, clean space where the identity of the space would be this suspended monolith that somehow it's a lightning element, somehow it resembles let's say a coin, but it's very abstract. But then it kind of centers the focus of the space for the events, and then there is like a big curtain that enables the usage of the space in two ways. One is like for the events, so you close the curtains and you can have a important presentation or PR conference or whatever, or you can open the curtains and then you can start seeing to those peripheral spaces, and those peripheral spaces would be the spaces of cafeteria. This would be like the sitting area. Then it would be space of the library. So you can come down, study, and you can be part of this space, or the spaces for the informal meetings. What do we mean with informal meetings? You can have like clients and you can organize the meeting in that area and not up in those more closed zones. So the idea is very similar to the idea of the Chamber of Commerce's project done 20 years ago, where actually the client, the director of the chamber, and in that case the president of the Bank of Slovenia, wanted to make the work of the employees or his institution more transparent and more open. This is like often the case within the project that we work with. So also like in these institutions, they want to base their work on communication, on openness, on interaction, and this is like I think really very important. We wanted to, since this is the Bank of Slovenia, we wanted to have everything just like Slovene. So this is like the design of these chairs is like a Slovenian modernist chair from 50s, really important for us. The lamps and the table we designed by ourselves, and actually it's recycled from or reused from the material elements that we found on the site before. So actually these tables, we use the panels that were here used in the bank before, the floor, the stone floor, all the plastering, it's sort of original. What is actually the new is that peripheral part around the central area of the bank hall. Also since this was like a student project, we developed a chair. Yes, you can see it here in the background for the cafeteria. We called it the Triglav chair. So Triglav is the highest mountain in Slovenia, the most important symbol. It's also in our flag, and we thought like if that is so, why don't we design a Triglav chair? So in the Bank of Slovenia, they would have a Triglav chair in cafeteria. But then there was also another reason, because this is like a really big space, empty space. We wanted to have a really big chairs. So actually, even if the space is empty, even if there are no people sitting in these chairs, that it would not look empty. So these spaces, so these chairs are designed as being like comfortable but still working chairs with a lot of volume and resemblance to our big mountain. So actually there is sort of like a bit of irony within this within this chair, but in the end it has been developed as a really comfortable product with all the standards in terms of dimensions, heights, sitting angles, and so on. So this is like as it is seen within the context of this interior. Don't worry, we have 2 more projects to go. One is the renovation. It's in the mountain areas of Slovenia. It's actually the clubhouse in the golf course that has been built in late 30s. Like a really that's the building to the right, like a really majestic rural building, like the biggest house in the village, with a really big roof. But then later, in 70s and 80s, they built some addition to it. You can see it to the right and to the left. So this was how you can see it in 1938, like a really beautiful building with big roof, stairs, a big balcony, like a clubhouse for the golf course, royal golf course of King Karađorđe, the Serbian king, the king of Yugoslavia at that time. And then in 70s and 80s, they did build some additions like storage space and kitchen and so on. And then it looked like that. So it needed a renovation, and the idea was to somehow clean the building of all those additions and to build 4 public spaces around it. One would be like the entry plaza, 2 would be like a winter garden or like pavilion, 3 would be eastern lawn for the breakfast, and 4 would be like the terrace for which you would be able to view the greens of the 9 and 18th hole. It's like a golf course facility. This is like how it looks in the end. It's actually the idea. I mean, the project, the type of the project is obviously renovation and addition. We work closely with Office for Historic Preservation to keep all the qualities of the old building, and also the extension, as you can see, the structure of the existing building with this grid of, you can see it on the ceiling of the balcony with this gridded ceiling. It extends to the ceiling of pavilion, and the pavilion, since it's being completely transparent, actually the grid of the pavilion and the grid of the trees intersect in the formula that I presented in the beginning. So this is also one type of the project that we've been working on. It's sort of like a renovation, interior decoration, and also for that project we developed a product. We named it Helga, again with a little bit of irony, it's just the name. The idea was to use the old Slovenian tradition of ceramic elements with which they've with this technology sort of, or this craft, they develop different projects from pots to ovens to everything. And in this case, we've developed an element, as you can see it, and with this element you can assemble a different composition in different colors, and the main purpose is you can fill in the bottles of water or wine or whatever, and here it's introduced in a completely contemporary apartment that we designed for a physician. Or within the country clubhouse of golf course in Bled, where the colors and the shape is more traditional. So actually, you can use a very simple element and compose out of this simple element. You can compose different type of shapes and different type of products that are really very. They communicate in a different way. One is very traditional, one is very, very contemporary. I will finish with actually the last building being built. It's a project that we've designed in Belgium. This was like a big challenge actually for us. Because the European market looks open, but then at the same time it's very closed, as you would experience. But in this case, it was like the Belgian Chamber of Architects, or the architects of the Flemish part of the Belgium, decided to open up their space and it was possible to participate in different competitions in that part of Belgium. And we won the competition for the building for the study of social sciences in the university campus in Ghent in 2012, and it took 8-9 years for the two buildings to be built. This was like a big experience for us to work in foreign country in different circumstances. We learned a lot, and you know, it's also like one would say, okay, maybe somewhere else the procedure is much more simple. It's more easy to you know, to force your ideas or to see your ideas come true and so on. But then everywhere it's really important to communicate your ideas with the needs and demands of the client. This was the competition in 2012. It asked for 3 buildings for this a new building for the Studio of Social Sciences, the new sports hall that was the extension of the existing sport hall to the north, and to the center of the campus that was an auditorium, cafeteria, and outside plaza with a fountain. The 2 buildings, the new building for Studio of Social Sciences and the new sport hall extension, they have been built, but the center of the campus, it never really started. Maybe sometime in future, then also this thing will be on their program. That was, I mean, it's like that, like 40 teams would apply, would be pre-selected, but then they would choose 6-7 teams to compete in the competition. And actually this was the diagram that helped us won that competition. We introduced the idea of 2 atriums that would become the vertical hall or the interactive part of the building, with this sort of conducted path through those 2 atriums, and big semi-public space in the center of the building, and lecture halls being organized into lamellas left and to the right, as opposite to the building to the left that they asked for with a corridor and a courtyard. So actually this is like the sectional diagram showing underground parking. Then the 3 main floors of the semi-public spaces of the building, and left to the right lecture halls and classrooms in all 3 floors. This is the public circulation diagram. So actually one would be able to circulate in that central part of the building, that would connect all 3 floors through all these 3 atriums, and then also connect it to the underground parking. To be able to do that, the fire safety was the main issue. So actually, the fire escapes are to the left, are on the facade. So actually, there is like a building with the facade. Then there are fire escapes and stairs, and then there is this facade that you can see on that image. That are actually the lamellas that they provide natural shading for the building. But then they also communicate the presence of the building to the surrounding. This is the building from the back side, from the side, and this is the entry point where the lamellas open up, lift up, and this is the point where you enter to the building. The building center core. This is like the arrangement in COVID times, so it's very non-dense in a way, but still it works and it functions. It's like 3 types of spaces. Each one has a different height and different view to the outside, and they are connected one to another with a set of stairs and a set of ramps, and all these functions as a one big, let's say, semi-public, interactive, communicative space of the building. So thank you for your attention. It was quite a long lecture. I hope not too long, and we still have some time for your questions and or for discussion.
Jurij, thank you very much. It was very interesting to listen to you. We will probably have the questions from students via the chat, exactly, because it's much easier. So, dear students, if you have any questions, please write it in the chat. And meanwhile, I would like to ask regarding this kind of personal vocabulary, or that you actually accompany all of your works. It was, for me, it was a kind of, let's say, a typology, perhaps. And I want to ask if it was created before. It's a kind of tool that you are working with, or is it created ex post, as a kind of tool of explanation of your work, and how it works?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's like it's a good question, actually. Yeah, it's a logical question. The thing is, you know, like it's like when you work on your projects and you produce one project, second, third, fourth, you know, like a lot, then of course you start asking yourself, what is it that is our specific, you know, what it is that our projects are different than from other architects, what is it that binds them together, what is, you know, and this is one thing. You try to organize your work, you try to understand your work, you try to come to some conclusions that you would be able to use in your further work. This is one thing. The second thing is, like, when we were working on different projects, some expressions just came out, like vertical hall. You know, we gave the names to certain ideas. For example, like we said, like in Chamber of Commerce, let's make this vertical space, and out of this vertical space, you know, the expression vertical hall came out, and then we started using this vertical hall. And then, for example, for the National Gallery, this cinematic structure with set of frames came out of the work itself. But first we named them tendencies. You know, tendencies was the first name that us as in the office named them. We always try to also to draw a very simple diagram for the project. You know, for the fountain, it's just like one line with two people and so on. And then when we were working on the project for the presentation of work in the Venice Biennale, we worked with a Spanish publishing house, Actar, from Barcelona, and then there was this editor and actually owner of this publishing house, Ramon, and he said, guys, I mean, these are not tendencies, these are formulas, you know, because when something works, then this is formula, you know. Tendency is like you want to make a, I don't know, COVID cure, but you work, you know, with, you try to find it. But then when you find it, then this is it becomes the formula. And then this is how the name formula emerged. So actually, I would say it's like in the beginning, we were talking about formulas, but we didn't still know that they're formulas. Well, now, you know, there is always already like 20 of them and 25 of them, and we can say, okay, let's do that project in that way. Let's use that formula. You know, so this is actually the story of the formula.
Thank you, Jurij. This was very interesting, but I'm just wondering whether it's not giving you some kind of constraints or limitations, because is this like, you know, you have the formulas that you formulated yourself, but is there always room to produce new ones, or you automatically try to think in the ones that you already defined?
You know, the way how we understand these formulas, it's that they are part of architectural vocabulary. So you can have like, you know, stairs, you can have like 2-flight stairs, you can have like scissor stairs, you can have monumental stairs, you know, so you can also have, I don't know, and this is like an extended vocabulary that actually everybody can use, you know, also other architects can use them, or the students can use them. You know, it's just that you know, you in the end you need to explain your concept or your idea, and then you can name it we can also name them architecture concept or spatial concepts or ideas. But you know, this formula sounded more interesting in a way, more different, more new. But actually, you know, also you can take these 20 ideas and use them in your projects. Why not? I mean, vertical hall is not something only SADAR and VUGA would have. It's like many buildings in the world have, you know, big hall or open space or 3-dimensional space.
Yeah, this was actually for me the reason why I called it typology, because this is a kind of basic, let's say, systematization of space, or systematization of, I don't know, let's say, yeah, layouts, and everybody can work with it actually quite creatively. So it's really an open system. It could work as an open system. But we already have a question from our students, so yes, Monica will read it.
So Matusz is asking, firstly, I'd like to thank you for the presentation. What do you think is more valuable for architecture? To be modest or unique? I mean, should architecture respect its environment and context, or should it try to be experimental with its individual message?
I mean, yeah, sure. This is like this is like a big question. I think it has architecture. I think it has to challenge. You know, it's like this is the question of context. You know, is it like context there just to follow, or is it context there to change? And I think the context is there to follow and to change in a way, because you know, any new building somehow has to grasp from the specific of that space and of that time, but then also it has to bring a change to it. And you know, I think that this is something what we've always tried to achieve somehow, or was a challenge for us. You know, where do we find the balance that something is transformative but still belongs to that place? For example, like Slovenska is like a really nice example, I think. It is, how shall I put it, like there was like a big dilemma whether the pavement should be gray, just simple, or this gray yellow pattern with three-dimensional effect. I think that while doing that, one would completely change the perspective of the space. One would change the way how people use it. One would transform it from like a super serious to a let's say happy place for events, for meetings, for rendezvous. And you know, it's like I've never been really into completely minimalist, belief, like there is so much information in the world, we really need to reduce everything. But I think that our buildings are very different depending on the way where they stand, or the space that they are, or the program. For example, you've seen the house Gradaška is a very, very modest building. It's just gray, just grit, one material, one color. While maybe some other, like the sport hall, is much more playful, because it is an icon for a sport park where people from the city, from the country would come for big events, rock concerts, marathon, and so on. And there is no need just to be like a completely abstract box, but something that is open, that is playful, and so on.
Thank you very much. And it made me think again about the proposal for the Bacchus Bridge that you shown us, because that was probably for somebody quite a shocking proposal. It was something very experimental that was bringing completely different way of thinking about bridges in public spaces. So was this not any context to follow in this case, or why did you decide for such a striking design?
Yeah, I would say maybe sure, it would be really a challenge to build something like that, but at the same time, as you see what Plečnik did maybe like 50 years ago, when he completely transformed the area and built that the building of the marketplace and the whole city. He completely transformed the city from continental to really Mediterranean city, maybe just using the classical language, and then because of that it was more easy accepted. See, he was super clever. He somehow camouflaged his super radical ideas into a much more classical, acceptable language, but then he really transformed the fabric of the core of the building, and it's now a much more pleasant place to live. Ljubljana is really, really nice. If you compare the climate to how you can use the city spaces, it's really a big success of this guy. How he really managed to do that. So yeah, we've sometimes maybe you need to go a little bit more radical into the presentation, into the architectural language to really communicate your idea. But I think that in the end, this project would not be would fit into that space perfectly, for sure. It's like that's why also, like, I think SADAR+VUGA never developed a certain style. We never wanted to work on our specific style. Like I don't know, the example would be Tadao Ando, all concrete, or King of Kuma, all wood, or we've always tried to develop something that would be new, different, would relate to the specific program in specific place. How to deal with that context. Also, like with students, we develop this. We talk about that really a lot. How to find the spirit of a certain city, of a certain place. How you extract that from existing architecture in sort of archetypes, how to use those archetypes to develop prototypes, and then those prototypes sort of can become those formulas. You know, it's like a game. You know, it's like that's why I call it like Happy 25. You know, it's like enjoy. You know, it's like I compare it to sport. You know, I've always loved sport, and you know, if the sport really becomes beautiful when you're fit and you know how to play. When you know how to play tennis, then it becomes like a really challenging, complex, you know, combinations, or golf or whatever. You know, you need to be really good at something, and then you can really enjoy it. And this is what we try to achieve. You know, to know how to play the game of architecture, but then, you know, then you can experiment.
You've been talking about the transformation of the city and regarding the bridge, but you also did it in the transformation of the street in the center of Ljubljana. So perhaps, I don't know, probably it's still somehow secret, but perhaps you can speak a little bit about the ideas that you have introduced in this workshop competition for Bratislava Kamenné námestie. Is it allowed already to tell a few words, or is it not?
I mean, it's sure, we can talk about it. The thing is like it's like a really very interesting competition, and it's about those three squares, the triangle and monument square. I keep forgetting the name. Then the marketplace, and then the
Námestie Slovenského národného povstania. It's like very complicated name.
Very complicated, yeah. So it's like the combination of those three squares, that it's somehow similar to what we have in Ljubljana, like the three squares, but not that connected. So the thing is like, you know, it's all three squares are they have a lot of history, a lot of you know, content in a way that is especially interesting with the one with the marketplace. That is like a really, we've seen like a really interesting initiative in terms of program, what's going on and so on, and they want to extend also to the outside, intensify that presence. And then the Kamenné Square, that is like a, you know, a completely heterogeneous, undefined space in the center of the city. So what the client wants is really a big challenge, and what we offered is like we offered something similar to what we've to what we proposed for the Slovenska and what we did for Slovenska. So it's like to reduce the traffic to minimum, to extend the space of the pedestrian up to 30%, and to give each to unify the pavement, but then to bring something new to each one of those three squares, like a sunken plaza, like the circular plaza, like the green belt area in the place of the national uprising. So we don't know the other three proposals, so it's difficult to discuss. I think it's like really good jury. So you know, I would like to see us win, but you know, let's see what happens. You know, I would love to come more often to Bratislava, to know the city better, to talk to people, and it's a challenge. It is a challenge, not just for us, but also for the municipality.
And would you call your proposal more contextual or more radical or revolutionary?
I wouldn't call it. I wouldn't call it radical or revolutionary. I would call it happy. You know, I would call it like a place for event space, where people would enjoy in summer and in winter. It would there would still be tram, there would still be some traffic, but it would not be disturbing. You know, it would be pushed to the minimum and to the side, so people would get more space. It would also bring some more action from the Danube to the center of the city. That I think it's really important. That the old city is not just a tourist attraction, but it's a place for the inhabitants of the Bratislava. Yeah, I would say it was designed specially for the people of Bratislava.
We are very curious to see it.
Yeah. Thank you.
We have another question by a student, and so he's asking, do you think students should learn architecture at secondary schools? They learn history, geography, or philosophy, but they learn nothing about human environment, the urbanism and architecture. Would it help the architecture and public if they did so? That's very interesting.
Yeah, you know, it's like I don't think that they particularly would have to learn about architecture, but the thing is, like, you know, also in our schools that are, I would say, good, but they're really based on old Austro-Hungarian system, and we cannot escape from that. But our schools especially are more oriented to, let's say, natural sciences, mathematics, chemistry, biology, you know, explaining and understanding the world and everything that's happening through facts. The thing is, like, the culture always gives another perspective, the perspective that's not that measurable, not that objective, not that 100% truth, but it's often more true than the other one. And learning and understanding in the field of culture, expressing in the field of culture, understanding literature, art, contemporary art is really important, and I think one should learn that. Really, this should be part of the. So I would say basic education in culture, visual culture, to understand. I mean, it's the same as I told you before with the sport. If you know how to play, then you start enjoying it. And this is something that our school system completely lacks. And this is what we also try at the faculty. It's to really learn people how to draw, how to, you know, understand art. This will have to happen. It will have to happen, otherwise. I mean, if, for example, like, I had an opportunity to travel to Japan sometime, and you know, in Japan, it's obvious that their sense for visual or for the it's much higher. That it's part of their culture, part of their education. Even if you buy a completely simple thing in, I don't know, even in technical store, that the way that they wrap you this product and then they give it to you, it's completely different as if you get it with us. You know, it's like the whole ritual, the whole communication around that, the whole packaging, the whole typography, the color system. I mean, it's part of their everyday life, while here it's more and more disappearing, especially because there is lack of education in this field. No, I hope I was not too serious, but yeah, you are right.
No, I think that
I wouldn't learn architecture in high school, but I would learn, yeah, culture.
Yeah, I mean, it's not only about education, it's about general, let's say, the feeling of the society, how it approaches to culture and to...
Yeah.
Because you mentioned Japan, but it's profoundly rooted in their way of life since forever. So we can't even compare this. It's something that it's so natural for their culture to think about space and about design, about visual things differently.
Okay, but on the other hand, it's rooted in the Mediterranean culture as well. So,
but in a different way.
In a different way, yeah.
But we have another question by a student, and it's sort of related. She is asking, Dominika is asking, oh yes, because you compared architecture to sport. So, do you think that an architect needs to be born with this gift? Like he needs to be gifted since the beginning, or it's something that you can train to become a good architect?
You know, it's like, I would say, this is very difficult to give a one-way answer. You know, it's like I think architecture is sort of a way of living. You know, if you, I think you need to be completely committed to the profession in a way. You know, it's also like, for example, like the way how we understand what has happened. You can understand it. I mean, if you come to a certain city and you know what was going on in certain period, you actually read history through architecture and so on. So also like, in a way, I would say that you can establish a system how to judge certain decision. For example, like you do a project and then you make it really rational through structural solution. You really make it work through functional aspect. You can really use the right proportion and everything. But you know, in the end, you still need to have a final view and final judgment, and you need to say, do I like it? Is it beautiful? You know, and then this is maybe difficult. You know, this is difficult to learn. You know, you need to have a bit of that within you. Yeah.
I mean, I have to tell a story about one of your colleagues, Andrej Hrauski, you probably know quite well, and he was always telling that it's something like when you learn to play a violin, you can train and you will become a good player. But if you want to become a virtuoso, like a real star, it is not enough. You need this kind of a gift, and I mean, this is the very same for architecture. By the way, Andrej Hrauski was the first one who introduced your work to our audience in 1999. It was the building of the Chamber of Commerce. So we have a kind of common history. I used to be editor-in-chief of the journal that published it, so it's quite long time ago. But we have another question from our students.
Yes, our students are asking a lot tonight. I hope you are still ready to answer. So Karina writes, good evening, Mr. Sadar. I am wondering about the project in which you put the glass block between two older buildings. So that was the gallery extension. You said there is a public living room. I can imagine it's a good public space, but I am very curious about how the space works. Is it controlled or open all the time? Many times we are very skeptic when we design public space. We ask, will it be safe? Because when we just imagine homeless people, drunk people spending their time there, it doesn't seem very pleasant. How is it possible to keep the space inside safe?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, thank you for this question. I think it's really good. So I mean, you know, it's very difficult to talk so many things in just one lecture, but you know, for example, like I mentioned that in front of chamber we managed to design a plaza that is a public space. So actually the institution gave a certain space for the city to use. I think this is really important, that in every project one doesn't just limit the plot and then, you know, make a fence and this is mine, but then that you also take something from the city, but then you also give something back. And this was the idea with the National Gallery, because not just ours, but also because of the director, because there were almost no visitors to the gallery. You know, it's not like a Louvre collection or I don't know, Tate. It's like a Slovenian art, and then maybe in 1998 there were not even that many tourists. So actually he wanted to have a space, an area within the building that would be where they would be able to organize different kind of events that would not be related completely just to their activity, to the collection and so on. And that's why we've inserted this level of mezzanine that we named City Living Room. And actually it's sort of semi-controlled. If you want to go there, you can enter the National Gallery. Below you have now, it's been remodeled a bit once, maybe like 5 years ago, quite successfully, because after some years we found out some things. You can go and have like a coffee and a snack, you know. You can buy something in the shop, or you can even go to the mezzanine where they have like benches, sit there and have a view to the park or to the city. And it's really nice because it gets quite quiet, and you don't have to buy the ticket for the exhibition. So actually if you wanna go to the gallery, you buy a ticket, but then for the mezzanine you don't need to buy a ticket. But still, to some extent, it's a you know, it is a controlled environment. If someone would come and do something and so on, but at the same time, there are quite a lot of exhibition in that space. Like it could be like graphic annual graphic exhibition of, I don't know, best works and then awards, or some company takes the place and show the production or industrial design or whatever, something that is somehow connected to culture but not really to the activity of the National Gallery. I think it's really good, you know. It's really important. It's somehow like an implant in an institution, you know. It's like yeah, because sometimes this these traditional institutions, they struggle, you know. It's like a national museum or national, for example, like Victoria and Albert Museum introduced this technology part that introduced a lot of youth, kids, you know. So you put something like completely different into an institution that is very traditional. I think it's really good. But many times it's just empty, and also that is nice. You know, you can go there, just have you sit there and view outside. It's nice.
Okay, thank you. I mean, this was a quite complex and very, how to say,
very rich discussion.
And also this answer. I mean, you have touched all the phenomenon that I have mentioned at the beginning of in the introduction, that you have actually as a goal or as a advertising for your office, like contradictory and monumental and robust and ambiguous and whatever. So I mean,
now we understand what you meant.
Exactly. So I would say that you must be quite tired after 2 hours of talking. So
it would be nice to talk more, but unfortunately our time is over.
Yeah, so I would like to thank you very much for being with us. It was really great pleasure, and we enjoyed very much your lecture. Unfortunately, it was only like in a virtual way, but perhaps if you are in Bratislava next time, I hope so that you will come because of work, so we can meet and we can somehow guide you through the city and discuss more all these topics that we have touched today.
Thank you again for inviting us, like office and me. It's been a pleasure. Let's stay in touch, and yeah, I'll let you know when I come to Bratislava next time. Sure, it would be a pleasure. We can talk to your students or whatever.
Yeah, because you already constructed a kind of bridge between our students and your students, so perhaps we can continue with this bridging.
This is like a nice opportunity. I mean, we cannot be together, but online, really a lot of people can listen to these things. I think also for our students, it's interesting to see your response and your questions, because, you know, architects, we like to get some response to provocative questions, questions that's difficult to answer and so on. So thank you again, and yeah, I will let you know next time I'm in your areas.
Okay,
We thank you, Jurij.
Bye bye.
See you. Bye bye. Have a nice evening. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.